Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your hosts, Katie Comer.
and Chelsea McLeod.
Welcome to Hope After Addiction. We are so happy that you've joined us today. How are you?
I am doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Yeah,
I'm doing
kids
really well.
about to start back to school.
Yes, we're gearing up. By the
Yeah.
time you listen to this, they've started, so I'm
Yeah.
hoping it's going well.
Yes, I know. Hopefully.
But yeah, they start back next week, and I have this weird thing. So I'm excited for them to get back in the routine and
Yeah.
us having a routine. And it's just, I'm excited for them,
Yeah.
you know, to see their friends and meet their teachers and stuff. But then I'm just also sad. And I didn't think I would be like this last year.
Yeah.
I'd be like, bye, get to school. But I cried when I
I
dropped them off
bet.
just because like I enjoy the summer with
Yeah.
them. And we're on the go a lot. And I love them being around me.
Yeah.
I have control
Speaking
over
of, yeah.
them and what they're seeing, what they're hearing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have this like, I'm the one that protects them and they're at home with me. But then they go off to school and I just have to be like, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so, yeah, but I'm excited. I'm excited too because
Yeah.
they love school mostly and they're very social.
Yeah.
So they love to be around their friends. So
It's exciting.
yeah, so I'm excited, but that's a good bridge into what we're talking about
right.
today. We're talking about control. We're talking about, and that's something I do struggle with it, and I still do. And so this is just going to be as convicting to me as it is, as I was like preparing for, I was like, yeah, I still am struggling with this. So, but how can we release control to the one who controls everything? And it's hard to do because I, white knuckle it and don't want to give control to the one who deserves it all. So,
Yeah.
but we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about control and what that looks like to release it and how we do that. I've done it before, with living out this life of, addiction with Adam and stuff and just releasing it to God and surrendering it to God. But how does that look in my current life
Yeah.
and what I'm living out today?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think if we're all honest, we all struggle with some sort of control. Even
Yes,
the smallest things
control
to the biggest
issues.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think some seasons are easier than others. Like when you come to that full surrender where there is no other choice but to let God have it, control is easier. And I also believe that control, I think for me, is a sanctification as I walk through life to God, to trusting Him. And the more that I learn and grow in the fact that He does protect and I can trust Him more. But I struggle with control every single day. Down to
Yeah.
the littlest things like housework,
yeah.
to the biggest things like emotional. Control is it's a big one.
I know.
So
And ultimately, when we're talking about control and not releasing control, it's ultimately us not putting our trust in God. So
Yeah.
that's what it boils down
Yeah.
to is, do I trust God or do I not trust God? And it's easy enough for me to say, I trust you, Lord, with my life. You have brought me out of so much darkness. You have brought me out of the pits, right? And you have brought me into the other side, and it is a beautiful life, right? It's beautiful. So why not trust Him? But yet again, every day I wake up, I have to release that control. It's just
Yeah.
so funny to me that it's funny to me that we still struggle with it
Yeah.
because He's brought us through so much. But yet, are we really trusting Him? Because that's the root of it all.
it is. I had somebody ask me one time in the situation of control, and they're like, so you're saying that you know better than God?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, no, I don't.
Yeah,
but
no. Yeah, talk about stabbing the heart. And I was like, you're right. Like when I try and control, I do think that I know better than God.
Yeah.
Even though I subconsciously, it took somebody bringing that out. And it's like, yeah, that's what that says, is that you do think you know better than God right now. So one thing Mom always used to remind me of is focus on what you can control versus what you can't.
Yeah.
Because it's completely out of our hands. You know, life really is. I mean, we don't know what's coming, but, you know, a few things you can control is your self-worth, your attitude, your behavior, and your responses. Things you can't, other people's emotions, other people's actions, death, the past, or the future.
Yeah.
And that's hard because I think in our journey with recovery, I really had to get back down to the things that I could control.
Yeah.
Versus couldn't, because it was driving me to insanity.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely things that we can control and we can't control. So I definitely believe that. There is a verse that when I was kind of preparing for this, it says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. So if you feel like you're out of control, just understand that God's purpose, God will prevail in this. And so there's many verses like that kind of throughout the Bible that God is in control, you know, that kind of turns it back to that. So I thought that was...
I love that verse.
Yeah.
One of the points was so often the more we try to control, the more out of control we become.
Yeah.
And that is one of the truest statements, especially walking through addiction with a loved one. And I started with Al-Anon. I've talked about that on here, but there's a saying in there that talks about it will drive you to insanity. And I learned that me trying to control John was actually controlling me. And I was a miserable human because everything I was trying to control was out of my hands. So I was chasing a dangling carrot that I never would achieve or reach. It takes a lot of energy to try and control somebody. So when you finally are able to just let go, there's so much beauty and freedom and being like, okay, God, this is on you. You're in control here. A lot of my girls' friends know that Exodus 14:14 is my life verse. Be still and the Lord will fight for you. Another one says, be quiet and the Lord will fight for you. And God has really worked in my heart the last 6 years with that one, because any circumstance I get into that I know the battle's bigger than I am, I'm like, all right, God, like this is you. I can't fight this. I hand this to you. I surrender this to you. I give up my control of this. You fight this battle. And he does. And he does it way better than I ever could.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And that's in circumstances every day.
Yeah.
Today, even on the mission field. You know, like, God, this is your battle to fight. This is in a realm that I'm not. And our pastor says, don't bring spiritual battles into the physical realm. And I love that, because we take control of spiritual battles and we bring them over here, and they're meant to be fought in the spiritual realm. Where God's like, hey, I'm right here, ready to fight your battles, but you have control of it, so I can't fight for you because you're clinging too tight. Yeah.
So when we're talking about releasing control, and if you're in the midst of the battle of addiction, whether it be you or your loved one, what are some practical ways that we can release control? So tell me how to release control, because I need to just tell me. I know for me, in the middle of the battle with releasing control with Adam, is, I mean, and I say it a lot, is through prayer and physically calling out to the Lord, God, take this from me. I release it. There's something powerful in just like saying it. Whether you believe it truly in your heart, eventually God will just kind of release that, you know. But I just remember several times in that journey, just crying out to the Lord, God, I give this to you. I don't understand what you're actually doing. And I don't know what that looks like, but there's something about just physically saying it. So if you are really in the middle of that addiction, just crying out to the Lord, saying, God, I give this to you. It's scary. And it's scary of what my life looks like. I pray that you save my husband, my wife, my son or daughter. I pray that you save them and you save them from this addiction. and I release it to you. And if not, I pray, Lord, for our story and what that looks like, and I give it to you. And if it is, Lord, use our story. And so that's one way, is to speak it to the Lord, to release it. Whether you're there yet completely, I think that there's something powerful in that.
There is power and there's freedom, and it's bringing it to light. Like, I trust you, God.
Yeah.
Like, this is your battle. This is not mine. I've never forgotten that. And I still to this day remember that, because that released me from control. I used to want to make the house so perfect that he would not go use. I used to want to make sure that everything in life was just perfect, thinking if I did that, he wouldn't go use. That was me controlling. If I control the house, if I control the money, if I control the cars, like if I do all of this, it will save him from using. If I keep my mouth shut when I should say something, if I don't stand up for myself when I should stand up for myself, he won't go use. Nothing that I ever would have done would have made him go use. So I think reminding yourself in that moment that you are not responsible for their actions, releasing that control. And Katie said it's a renewal of the mind constantly.
Yeah.
Renewing
every day
that
you have to wake up and choose that.
You have to. And then, like I say a lot of times, 1,000 times through the day sometimes.
Yeah.
I release this control. I am not responsible for them, for their actions, for their outcomes. And that is terrifying, because my husband's drug of choice was opiates and heroin. So I didn't know if his next one would be the death of him. And that was scary, because I was giving up control to something that I wanted to. And it's still it's a process, and it's taken years to, like you said, to solely depend on God and to trust him to take that control where it's out of our hands. And there's been some really precious, beautiful lessons in that.
Yeah.
And even the Exodus 14:14, there's been battles that we've been in, and I'm like, God, I can't do this. And he'll come back a day later and be like, you know what, Chelsea? On the very battle. And I'm just like, what? God, you worked really fast in that, you know?
Wow.
But God does. And God may not always answer our prayers the way that we want it to. I've been in that scenario, the overdose. That was not the way that I wanted to. And working up to that, I knew that he was using. But there was nothing I could do. Hindsight, I see how God used that.
Sure.
But I had to let go of control, because there was nothing that I could do to stop it or change it.
Wow. It's powerful. I know another one for me to release control was distraction. So we talk a lot about self-healing, right? And so I try to distract myself by, working on myself. So I did like a 5K and trained for a 5K, and I surrounded myself with friends and family that spoke truth into my life.
Yeah.
And so, another good one is distraction by maybe going to a counselor and just speaking it and speaking what's really you're struggling with. And that's something that really helped me, because I was just in such a pit of just like wanting to control this issue, that if I turned my attention away from it, I wasn't so focused on that, controlling that situation. So that's why we also talk a lot about self-healing, and working on yourself, because it can be so exhausting just to be so focused and so controlling over the issue of addiction. And so like me in my current state of trying to control the whole mom thing and making sure my kids are okay and wanting to make sure that they're, spiritually healthy and physically healthy and emotionally healthy, it's consuming me sometimes, And so just trying to, when they're at school, focus really on my spiritual life, and my physical, well-being. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. And I think that's imperative. And we do talk about self-care because we know what it does. And for all of anybody watching, you know this, when you dropped a loved one off at rehab,
Yeah.
you know the feeling that came with, because you literally have released control over that person to someone else. You know they're safe, you know they're alive, but the control is no longer in your hands. And so there's no greater feeling than leaving that. It's hard, but you are able to release that control where they're not your responsibility anymore. Because that's one thing that I had written down, is so often we feel responsible for our loved ones. We feel responsible for our children, for our husbands, because they are a reflection of us. And so even mom has struggled with this with my little brother. You know, Chelsea, what did I do wrong? Chelsea, where did I go wrong? But my brother and I chose completely different paths. I didn't follow drugs. He did. We were raised in the same home with the same God-fearing mother, in church, like same thing. But God has a different destiny for my little brother than he does for me. Like Ethan's story is different than mine.
It's true.
And so often in these moments of releasing control, I will tell Jesus, I said, he is your son first. You love him more than I do. And that helps me even with my son. And even on the mission field, some circumstances, I said, God, you love him more than I do.
It's the truth.
And it is hard to fathom, because like my son, I love more than life itself.
I don't understand it.
No. And so
But
in
it's
that
amazing.
moment, it's amazing. It's a whole different love. But in that moment, and even with John, all through addiction, I'm like, God, you love him more than I do. You see what I can't see. And I'm releasing that control because he is yours first.
Yeah.
And so that's a renewal also, is like, God, he's yours. He's not mine.
Yeah.
Because we do hold that responsibility.
Yeah.
I hold a responsibility for my little brother, and I realized that a few years ago because I helped to raise him. We had a single mom, and I felt responsible for his drug use. And it's like, but that wasn't, I couldn't control his choices,
Sure.
you know? So if I know you feel responsible for whoever's watching this, and you feel a heaviness.
Yeah. That is definitely, because we've been there. And we're still there, you know, to an extent, maybe different ways in our life. But we understand that wanting to white knuckle and just like control those issues, because if you do, you know, you can kind of turn their heads a little bit. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important. And like Katie said, focus on you. I talk a lot about the path around the field that John built.
Yeah.
And in that moment that I was like, clinging so tight, get out in the field and walk. Go do something for you, because we get so focused on them.
Yeah.
And I still work with a lot of my girls. Take your eyes off of
Yeah.
them. As my grandmother says, take your ivy out of John and put it back into God. Because that's when control gets real bad.
sorry, I had to get
So you're good.
water. So when everything's said and done, it all comes back to trusting God, like I said, and also surrendering your will to what his is.
Yeah.
And are you willing to do it? Like, are you willing to really actually put your trust that God is going to heal your loved one? Are you trusting that God's going to heal your heart? You know, it's fine enough that they're in rehab, but are you releasing that control to where he's able to heal your heart? Because he will heal your heart in this time. Are you trusting that your life is going to be okay? Are you trusting in that?
Yeah.
Are you releasing that? Are you trusting that your children are going to be okay? So it all comes down to trusting and surrendering that part of your life,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely. And that's what reminded me when you just said that.
Yeah.
2 Timothy 1:7 says God did not give us a spirit of fear. And in that moment of releasing control, or here, you're fighting fear. And so even that verse is, God did not give us a spirit of fear. Even on the mission field, there were some things. And I repeated, God did not give me a spirit of fear. God did not give me a spirit of fear. So in those moments, God did not give me a spirit of fear.
Yeah.
And repeat that over and over and over.
Yes.
Because he didn't.
Right.
And it is scary, because Katie said it's terrifying. Like, I feel her talking about it. Is terrifying to release control.
I know it is, but God's got you. And that doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard.
No, because it is hard. Yeah.
Right. And so, but God's got you, and God's got your story told, and it's already laid out. And so ultimately, if you kind of take a step back and say, there's nothing that I can do to change this, So I'm just going to trust.
Yeah.
I'm just going to trust that he has it under control. I'm just going to release it.
Yeah.
I'm going to release that.
Yeah. It's yours.
So, you have anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that you found some encouragement. I know it's some heavy stuff, right? I know it's some daunting. I don't want to release God because I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to send my kids back to school. So I'm preaching to the choir as I'm talking. So, but I know that there's some really heavy stuff that y'all are dealing with your loved one dealing with addiction. We understand it's heavy and it's hard. It's hard enough just to say I'm going to release it. But do you trust God? Do you trust that he has your life under control? Because he does. So you don't have to. So we hope you found some encouragement in that. Open the word, pray out loud. God, I release this to you. It goes a long way. And reach out to us. If you have Facebook or Instagram, you can reach out to us, private message us. We'd love to chat with you a little bit. That's where we get some of our topics for podcasting. And if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. You can comment below as well, and we'll chat with you there too. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode. We look forward to next week, and we hope you have a blessed day.